place. While each campfire chat brings its own authentic experience, the one thing they all have in common seems to be the strengthening bond with family and friends every time you throw water on it and walk away.
Or pee on it, as some people do.
That's true. They do that, don't they? I said doo-doo.
Welcome to Guys Fishing Weekly. We don't just fish, we hug.
Food out of your teeth?
I think so. I think we're good.
What's up, buddy?
How are you, dude? How's it going, man?
It's going. How's the work life? You know, you're cranking down.
Yeah, we are ending one trimester at my school, starting the last trimester.
The last trimester.
Roughly 12 weeks left. You know,
Wow.
You factor in a week of standardized testing in there. There's a week gone. I factor in, at least a few days fishing. There's another 3 days. Spring break's in there. There's some time off. We get to this point, we just start counting down, like, okay, how many actual days do we have left?
You just take a few more naps at work.
Right? Oh, you guys good? Okay, go. I was just sitting over here on the couch. Wake up if you need anything.
I'm sure there's some good English videos that you can just have them watch.
There's no fun in that. No, it's actually I'm excited to be, my last stretch with the kids and really pour my heart and soul into those guys because they're a fun bunch. So that's the plan. Not get too bogged down with all the other stuff, the administrative things that have to come down, and if I can get through all that stuff and just focus on the kids, that's where the joy is. That's my plan for my last trimester of teaching.
You gotta soak it up.
Yeah.
You gotta soak it up.
Yep. Let them drive my energy. So, which they do. So,
were you able to get out fishing this week?
Yes, I had Monday off. And so I was out winter fishing. There was some open water nearby. Here's what I figured out, Ed. I'm not a very good winter fisherman.
Well,
I smoked way more fish than I didn't even get a bump, dude. They were not on the bite. So, really low water, super clear. I don't see so well anymore. Even with my polarized shades, I'm sneaking up. I take one step and 3 things. I'm like, I didn't see them. Yeah.
You got to be more sneaky.
I do. And it's hard because, you have ice shelves. So you have to, it's not like you can kind of creep into the water. You're stepping off, hoping you're going to fall and slip and crush off this huge iceberg. So it's difficult in the winter to enter the stream and then, walk slowly through. So, so I got some work to do. I got to get better, being stealthier.
You do.
Winter fisherman.
I don't think it's a winter only thing for your fishing skill. I think it's just a general thing that happens with, your eyesight, your knees, things like that. It's what happens.
Yeah, I guess. I don't like to admit that, but I certainly noticed the eyesight for sure, having to use bigger flies because I can see them fishing little tiny midges. I can't see them. So
it's always chubby Chernobyl season in your world.
Exactly, and that's what I had. I had the smallest stimmy I had, and then trailed and dropped stuff off the back of it. I was like, why not? But yeah, it didn't work. So anyway, But it was a beautiful day. I'm telling you, it doesn't even matter. The catching wasn't great, but the fishing was awesome. And it was Colorado blue skies and just a gorgeous day. I think it was almost 60 degrees. And so it was fantastic. Probably up there it was probably more like 50 degrees, but down here it was
awesome.
60 something. Yeah. So it was great. It was, anytime I get a day out, it's a good day.
Heck yeah.
So that was awesome. How about you? You been out at all?
I have not, although the weather would say I should be getting out. I have not. Kind of got a busy week this week. We're trying to get out of town at the end of the week, heading down to Mexico to do a little family vacation. So
Excellent. Where are you going?
we're going to Puerto Vallarta.
Excellent.
So we're going to try and maybe get up to Sayulita. Haven't you been up there?
Yes. We were there for my 40th birthday, and that was 16 years ago. It's changed from what I hear. But great little town. They got an awesome surf break right there.
Yeah.
You're surfing every day. It was fantastic. So
That'd be awesome. We're also talking about maybe trying to go out and do some fishing. We'll see.
sweet.
Could be cool. Seems like
Best
there's
guacamole I've ever had.
best
Sayulita.
guacamole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good tacos too. So street tacos, really good.
Well,
yeah.
we'll get out and explore it and see what happens. But so things have been a little busy trying to get ready for all that, especially with taking a 3-year-old down there. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Been running and all that stuff, and just
How's
trying
the
to
training
keep
going?
consistent.
Good.
You have good days, you have bad days. I
Yeah.
had a bad day the other day where I was just like, well, I had a good day the day before, and I probably pushed a little too hard. And then the next day I was just wrecked trying to do a workout. I feel like I looked like a wounded antelope as I was running around. It was no good. But them's the ropes. So
Man, I can't even imagine.
I got a 9.5 mile run tomorrow. So we'll see.
Ooh,
Yep,
is that the farthest you've gone?
that will be the farthest. Yeah.
All right.
So,
Nice.
but from 9.5, the first goal of 13.1, it's just a rock throw away from there. Really, you could
Right.
limp the rest of the way and get there. So if I can do that, I'm pretty confident I can do the whole thing. So we'll be good.
All right.
So
I look forward to hearing that. Hearing how
So-
that goes. Sweet, dude.
yeah. So I guess we can hop into your reading piece this week.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a good one.
it's a goodie.
Yeah. The value of the campfire chat. That's what I'm going to read this week. And then we'll talk about that. But the context around that was a camping trip you and I took. A 3-day extravaganza of fishing and getting rained on. But the campfire chats were good. That trip, they were great. And so that trip had me thinking about, I think kind of the sacred piece of that and the ambiance of that place and what that means. So I started thinking about that, and that's where the context of this piece came from.
Love it.
So here we go. The value of the campfire chat. The campfire, to most campers, it's a vital symbol. A symbol of survival, as it provides warmth through heat. A symbol of community, as the chairs assemble around it. A symbol of bond, as the stories and chatter make their way around. The fire pit is the center of the campsite, around which the magic of family and friendship is conjured. I know someone in Las Vegas coined the phrase, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas," but it should have come from someone in a camping world. What happens around the campfire stays in the campfire. It's that sacred. My most recent fishing trip found me on a 3-day camping excursion with one of my best fishing buddies. It was just the two of us, and it turned out to be a great weekend full of adventure, hiking, bushwhacking, and a bunch of beautiful fish. But my favorite part of the weekend was the talk around the campfire. The two of us delved into deep discussions of life and parenting and working and money and aging and relationships and loving and fishing. And what I discovered in these campfire chats were the components we possess to allow it to happen organically. Number one, reciprocity, the exchange of thought and ideas with mutual benefit. We both are able to provide insight and advice to help each other. It seemed that the 20-year age gap in our friendship allows us to be in different places, with each of us able to help the other. We can both take advice and find value in it to help us with something we are struggling with. Financial advice from the one who is much better with it. Parenting advice from the one who has been through it. Valuable exchange of advice and thought. Number two, listening. Something that seems to be lost in our ever-evolving world is the ability to listen. The campfire seems to create a chill atmosphere where listening exudes itself. It seems to heighten itself naturally when in the wilderness. But the crackling of the fire becomes the focal point, providing something to stare at intensely while listening to a friend open up about their life. It seems easier to do. Add to that ambiance, a friend you care deeply about, listening becomes valuable because you have opened up yourself fully and stand to learn much. Number three, the social currency of advice. I don't claim to be an expert at anything. All I got is experience. I try to keep it simple. However, in building friendships, the sharing of experiences and helping others inevitably becomes advice. The campfire chat becomes a place where advice may be the most valuable social currency one owns and can offer. It isn't something that is just thrown about haphazardly. Advice is authentically real in that when you offer it and it is accepted, it can be impactful. Therefore, it better be good. It better be well thought out. No matter what, advice is a staple of the campfire chat. And number four, willingness. The campfire chat offers the opportunity to willingly be open, vulnerable, thoughtful, creative, and caring. If you are willing to engage in honest conversation and are willing to take risks with your thinking, you stand to gain insight that will make you stronger, happier, more empathetic, and more mindful. The best part about a campfire chat is that no two are alike. No matter how long you end up talking into the night, the next time around seems to be completely different. It is similar to fishing in that sense. You can fish the same stretch of water over and over, but each time offers a different experience. You discover a fish in spots you hadn't before, or you see a new vista because you looked up when standing in a different place. While each campfire chat brings its own authentic experience, the one thing they all have in common seems to be the strengthening bond with family and friends every time you throw water on it and walk away.
Awesome. Or pee on it, as some people do.
That's true. They do that, don't they? I said doo-doo.
Before we get into this piece, let's talk about this fishing trip for a second.
Okay.
We were going up on a Thursday night, I think, to try and get in and camp.
Yep.
And wake up and fish in the morning. And we saw some weather on the radar. Kind of bummed out, but we only had so much time, and so we hoofed it up. And the rainstorm that ensued was insane.
We don't get downpours like that in Colorado that often.
No, and we were driving up to the mountains, and it was probably one of the darkest, scariest clouds I think I've ever seen as we were coming over Vail Pass. It's like, yeah, there's no way we're camping tonight. We would have been washed away for sure had we tried to set up camp next to a river. It was crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was nuts.
But it was a wet weekend, but we were able to get some fires lit and have some talks.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
They were a great time.
A night in a hotel followed by a couple nights camping. So it ended up being great. But yeah, dude, it was a wet weekend. That's for sure.
I remember we were just so determined to go on this trip, and we just thought it's not going to happen. But we just fought through it. And
we made it.
We had the river to ourselves. No one else forged on.
That was the best part, I think, was that once it all cleared, we really did. We didn't see other people fishing. And it was great. It was good. It was a good water, and it was a great stretch, and it was awesome.
For sure.
Got some great brookies up in that little creek we bushwhacked into. That was fun.
And some of those browns we caught when we hiked back into that, behind that protected part was awesome.
Yeah, that was good.
Definitely need to go back there. Let's walk through some of these bullet points. Reciprocity. Why is reciprocity so important in this situation?
I think for me, certainly, the older I get, I look for reciprocity in my relationships because I feel like time is so important. And so the investment in a relationship, I think, is where that kind of comes from. If I'm not feeling like there's a caring or a reciprocity that gives me something on the other side, you start to, after a while, wonder, hey, wait a minute, like, what's this all about, right? Maybe I'm putting in too much effort and I'm not getting what I need out of it. And if time is getting shorter and shorter, I want to make sure that I'm, getting the most bang for my buck in terms of the time I put in, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I know probably that might sound maybe conceited in some ways. I don't want it to be arrogant in that way, but it's a reality. The value of the time you put in is important. And so to get some of that back is I think, is great. And certainly, I talk about in that part of the piece, that age gap between the two of us. And I think it's really cool to be able to mentor and offer advice, and to get it and receive it also. And that's a really important, piece to any good relationship, right? Is to be able to do that. And so that, for me, being in a different place, I have so much to learn. The minute I think I don't have anything to learn from anybody is the minute I stop growing, and boy, oh boy, then the trouble really comes. So, I'm not arrogant in that way, but maybe I am getting more purposeful with my time and where I put that. And so having reciprocity with whoever's on the other end of that is important for me.
Right. I think reciprocity in general, in any relationship, friendship, relationship, work, acquaintance, I think you want equal amounts of energy being put in general. Otherwise, it's hard for there's not many two-legged stools that stand anyways, but it's hard for a one-legged stool to stand in a two-legged stool situation. And so I think it's hugely important to have as much reciprocity, and it's not every time, and it's not a keeping score and tally on, making sure that it's equally balanced, but sometimes you give more and sometimes you get more. It just kind of depends. But I think overall in the lifetime of a relationship, you do have to try and give some and to be willing to take some.
Yeah, I heard Brene Brown talk about, there was a clip of hers that I listened to, and she was talking about her relationship with her husband. And she talked about times when one of the most important factors for their success in their marriage is that they talk daily about how much they have. I only have 10% today. Okay, I have the other 80 and we'll be fine. I'll put in the other 80 today. And they talk about that, or the 90, or I got 70. That should be good. We'll be good for that, right? And they communicate that to each other daily, which I thought was really cool and really kind of neat. Like you don't do that with all your relationships, but what a great tactic to use with your partner, your significant other who you spend, every day with.
Right.
And she talked about, okay, I only have 10. Well, I only have 10. So what are we going to do? We need a plan because both of us are really in this place. I can only give maybe 20%. I can only give 20%. We're short. How are we going to get through it? And they talk about and devise a plan. Then from there, who's going to do what and how they're going to proceed. And I just thought that kind of communication, that level of reciprocity, when I think about reciprocity, that is what that's all about, right?
Right.
There are days, like you said, when I give more for sure. And there are days when I need to take more because I don't have it all. And I think that's what it's all about. That's at the heart of it. When you can do that comfortably with somebody, that's a real good thing to strengthen a relationship. You're in a pretty solid place with each other. So,
well, and I think that's super interesting with, especially doing with somebody that you're, super close with in your life partner. I think it's also kind of brings up a point of like, how do you really gauge, the energy in a relationship? Because you're not always going to say that to a friend, like, hey man, I can only deal with 10% of your bullshit today. So like, you gotta either tone it down or just today's not the day. And maybe you'll say that, but like, I think sometimes you do have to just kind of read the tea leaves and feel. And I think as relationships get better and stronger, it's a lot easier to be like, yeah, Reid does need to go to bed before cards are over. Tonight he just doesn't have it, and other nights, he might. But I think as you just get better at kind of reading the situation, I think in new relationships and new fireside chats, you do have to kind of bring your best self, try and bring as much of the percentage because you don't know what other people have. But I think that's an interesting way to look at it and just kind of understand how to feel out those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, that idea of time, and you get to start to understand, as a friendship deepens or a relationship goes a little bit longer, you start to be able to read. It becomes easier to read those tea leaves, and that's an important piece, is the patience that I think that takes too, in terms of a friendship or a relationship, whatever.
100%. All right. Number 2, listening. 2 ears, one mouth.
Yeah. That I made a comment in there about our seemingly ever divisive world, politically and culturally, and it's that idea. I feel like we've stopped listening. I seem to always go to my classroom in the younger generation, and that's just where I am as a teacher and what I do. But I see the inability to listen, and we work on that quite a bit in terms of skills that I try to teach, is listening, because I feel like it's just not something. It seems to be getting worse. It's not that it doesn't, but politics used to be this, governance. It seems to happen in our system when people are in the middle and they're listening to. That seems to be the people that govern, right, and get things done and listen, because they're listening to each other and they're willing to compromise and they're willing to do those things. That seems to be harder and harder to find in, government candidates. But I think it's happening even in our culture. People aren't listening. I don't know if it seems worse after COVID, but that skill and the idea of being able to really just shut up and listen to what somebody has to say,
Right.
and honor it with, the tendency to not talk over them or not interrupt them and just let people talk and truly hear them. And I think that's a big thing too, is there's a difference between listening and hearing, right? As you will learn to find out as your kid gets older, your kids age, they'll listen, but they're not hearing much of what you're saying. Right? And
Right.
there's a difference in those things to be able to, truly hear people. But listening, we got to start somewhere. And I feel like we've stopped listening to each other. So that's the cool thing I thought about, when I was thinking about a campfire chat. That was the cool thing because, again, I think the ambiance plays, you hear the crackling fire in the running river, and that's it. And there is those quiet silences where if somebody's speaking, it's a lot easier to listen. I feel like just the ambiance of camping in a campfire chat, it's so much easier to just listen to somebody.
Yeah. I think the fire, like I noticed, for example, when you're driving a car, it's a lot easier to listen to what's on the radio when you're driving, when you have a kind of a mindless kind of task going on in front of you. It kind of takes, I don't know, maybe the monkey mind away or whatever the word. And so it makes listening to things a lot easier when you're just doing something like that. And the fire, watching the fire move and dance and stuff like that, I think kind of provides that mindless detachment or whatever it would be, to get you into a place where you can listen more. I think on the other aspects, I think I would tend to agree with you that listening is probably worse. I think the bigger thing is like there's this one-up gotcha culture of like just hearing enough that I can just rebut you and get my word in and get my thoughts in. And I do think that a fire, obviously you're sharing it with people you generally care about, or you don't, some of that gotcha energy doesn't need to be there. And so I think some of that is just, it helps a lot because you're around people that you don't really want to necessarily one up. So
yeah, I think that's a good example of what I mean when the difference between listening and hearing. You can be in a conversation with somebody who listens, but they're just waiting to one up you. They're not hearing what you're actually saying, and trying to understand it or whatever. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about that. There is this sense of, I'm gonna get in mine. And that's the ugliness, I think, of it feels like where our culture's going, which is part of what makes fishing and guys fishing weekend and what we do so good. And I think something that can be offered to others is that place where it's not about that, it's not about how many more fish you caught than I caught. That part of fishing's long gone in the rearview mirror. There's more to it than that. And so, yeah, I think that's listening's such a vital role in all.
Yeah.
I would love to listen to somebody teach me how to be a better winter fisherman. I would listen and work to hear them.
You're kind of a lost cause on that front. So let's move on to number 3, the social currency of advice.
Yeah, I feel like I just think that's such a cool way to put that. Um, the social currency of advice being, I I mentioned like I'm not an expert at anything. After 25 years of teaching, I still don't feel like I'm an expert at teaching. Some might say, well, I don't know that anybody would call me an expert at anything, but so that advice piece, who am I to say, right? Who am I to say? All I have are the experiences and what I've learned from those. And so when it's time to offer that, when authentically ask me a question about parenting, for instance, God, I don't know. I don't think of myself as an expert at that. So it becomes a currency of I got to be careful about. I got to be sure that what I offer is valuable. And so that's where that kind of currency comes in. That's that concept of currency. I feel like the value of it becomes pretty important because you're seeking help in something, and that's the desire. I want to be able to offer you something valuable that you could use. And so that social currency piece, I think, is an important one. Not that I can't ramble and go off on tangents and, blah, 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 but hopefully through stories or whatever, I got to think about what's valuable and what I can offer you. And so I think that piece is, then it becomes kind of like currency. Advice becomes that for each other, right? I pay you this one, you pay me another one another time when I need it. And the Campfire, it allows us to go to those places so much easier. I don't have to worry about judgment or the company we're in or anything like that. And so that social currency becomes even more important in those realms because we can explore some things that, you don't normally go to. So that's what I was thinking about with that piece.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the reciprocity coming out as well. And I think also relationships, you can almost say the relationship currency of advice, and just how as you give advice and take advice and work with that, it does help grow the relationship and make it more of a valuable relationship, where you just have to exchange those times and those moments together to achieve that and build up your piggy bank of relationship currency.
Right. And how many times I hear something from somebody else and then I offer it to someone different, and like, oh, buddy of mine talked about this and, told me da 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 da, and it was like the most helpful thing in the world. And so, that currency gets passed around, right? And so that part of it, I think, is cool when you have that free flowing stuff.
Well, and it also comes back to, you have to put as much in as you're going to take out. You can't be a taker of all of the advice.
I'm just going to withdraw.
Right. You have to put some in too. And it can be scary. Like you said, you're not an expert, or you don't feel like an expert in teaching, but you do get in situations where you can provide advice and you can say, here's what I would do. And the person can choose to use that or not. But just think of it as putting a coin in the piggy bank of your working relationship. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a cool metaphor for it. I think a valuable one that I'm not sure people talk about or think about it in that way often. But when you start thinking about it that way, it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, definitely not the energy suckers in a relationship. They definitely don't think about it. Pro tip: avoid energy suckers.
Yes.
All right. Number 4, willingness.
That seems to be the key to it all, I think, is being willing to venture, being willing to invest. If we're going to stay on the currency piece, right? If we're going to stay with that realm, and I think that's probably maybe some of the hardest stuff, and maybe takes longer in a relationship, in a friendship, in a whatever. The willingness to kind of open up, the willingness to let things grow, to develop, to, you have to be willing to do those things, to risk investment in thought, in emotion, in laughter, in jokes, in storytelling, in everything that goes with it. You have to be willing to be a part of that. Otherwise, the transaction's not gonna be valuable for you. So that willingness, I think, is maybe the most important variable of it. I feel like in a lot of ways, because that's the risk piece.
I think for sure, and I think that's in all relationships, not just around the campfire. But I do think the campfire has a magic of breaking down those barriers and making it a little bit easier to be more willing. I don't know if it's our, fascination with fire, or just what we've done for many years humans have been playing with fire. Just it does break down those walls of helping you get to those places and being a little bit more willing. But I think in general, you have to try to come to relationships in general being willing to be open, vulnerable, thoughtful, creative, caring, like you've written in here. I think those are all important parts to a relationship, and making an effort to do that in every interaction is important.
Yeah. I didn't even think about, like, as you kind of said something in there that, like, back to how long people have been playing with fire. I didn't even think about the symbolism of all that in my campfire chat, just kind of like what it means when I'm out camping with my buddy is what I kind of kept it in that realm. But when you think about culturally, what goes on around fires and the sense of community and all of that happens within it, and that being kind of that focal point of pulling together, and it's fascinating. I didn't even get into all that stuff, but you certainly could, as being that powerful thing that, I don't know, it just is mesmerizing and enchanting, and I feel like I am able to be really thoughtful in ways that I don't normally. When I'm in a campfire with my buddies, family, even on family times, so many good laughter and memories and stories of sitting around the campfire. And I think it brings that, I don't know, mystique and power to something that allows us maybe to think and be on different levels than we normally would. And kind of that willingness to go there and to allow that to happen. I get excited for that. I really do. And that's like, one of the main staples of like packing up for a camping trip is like, we got firewood, like, gotta have that. Can't miss out on a fire. We can't risk going to find it. I want to make sure we have it. And I think
and speaking of that, on our trip of rain hell, we had the brilliant idea of, hey, we'll just get some firewood when we're there. Just hack up some logs that are on the ground. That didn't work out. So we had to drive like an hour to Leadville
to get some
some wood to even have a fire.
Right.
It's important. It's essential.
It is. It's the essential of any good trip. So, yeah, it's in its authenticity. It's so, and that's kind of like what I came to the conclusion of in my ending was there's these similarities of it, that, it always seems to bring or develop, a bond together. It always seems to do that. And that's the commonality. While no campfire chat is ever the same, we talk about different things or explore different ideas or different places in our lives when it's with a friend. When it's with a family, people are in different places and they're doing different things. And so the times around them, the stories are always different. And, the experiences are always different. But it shares that it seems always I am much more thoughtful on the drive home from a campfire, from a weekend of campfires, than I am when I was going there. And
Right.
so, that idea is I think an incredible one, and it's kind of a cool one that the campfire brings.
It's an essential part to it all, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a staple for activity out in the wilderness. The campfire chat.
The campfire chat. If you had to give everybody listening one actionable piece of advice from this, what would it be?
I think my actionable piece of advice would be the mindfulness to be present in whatever relationship maybe you're in currently or struggling with or whatever, or if you're about to go spend time with someone, the mindfulness to be in that moment and be present with and truly think about the reciprocity and the listening and the currency that is all of that, right? And being willing to be mindful of that and be present in those moments. I'm finding myself listening to my brain think about what if down the road a lot of late with a lot of things going on. And so I keep coming back to this idea of I need to be here now. And I had a couple different times this week. I had one night with my son where we went to a movie. We went and saw the new Bob Marley movie. And just he and I went. And I hadn't had some time with him in a bit. And then last night I had time with my daughter, just the two of us, did some stuff together. And so those moments of just being with them and being in those moments, because as they get older and they get busier, those moments become fewer and farther between. So it's really important to be there and not let my mind get consumed with anything else other than being with them. So that's what I would say from this, and this kind of gets at that whole being present and being, involved with who you're with at that moment and staying there and being fully invested in that.
It's great advice.
Thanks, dude.
It's another great writing piece in the books.
Another goodie. That one was kind of cool. Yeah, I enjoyed writing that one.
It was a great trip too that we had. So,
oh god, it was a good one. I know. I'm already mapping out where we're going next.
Oh man, this summer's gonna be awesome.
So, I'm so stoked, dude. I'm so stoked. So,
well, the weather's almost here for us. So,
right around the corner. Get out of this winter doldrum.
All right, man. Well, we'll talk again soon. Probably after my trip, but we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, brother. I love you.
Love you too. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, buddy.
Bye.